Hello everyone, K-Dub here, and today I am just going to share some observations from my first month working as a 988 crisis counselor, more specifically with chat and text. So I do have sort of an agenda written down over here, and I'm going to try to stick to the agenda, so this isn't 20 minutes long. So first thing on the agenda is schedule adjustment. So the shift that the contact center has that I am employed at is noon to 8 p.m. Sorry, there's a fly here. Um, and that has required quite significant schedule adjustment because it's not like I can come home and then go right to sleep and then get up early because I'm hungry. I haven't had anything that's close to dinner. We get a lunchtime, of course. So that has been quite an adjustment. And then when do I go to sleep? Do I go to sleep around midnight, 11 p.m.? When do I get up so that I have enough time to sufficiently eat breakfast and sort of start get going? I still don't know. I'm still feeling out what's working best for body and mind at this point in time. But it seems like 9:30 is the wake up time. That seems to be the most popular at this point when it comes to a work day. And then it's just managing to go to bed at a time where I'm significantly tired, which is usually around midnight. So midnight to 9:30. Yeah, that sounds about right on average, but sometimes I'm more tired, so I give myself an extra half hour. Sometimes I'm amped up, so I gotta wait until about 1 a.m. to go to bed. So it's there's no really set schedule, but it's usually within an hour of each other, so that it's not a complete culture. There's culture shock. Well, it would be a complete shock if I change my schedule so that I'm going to bed at like 10 and then getting up at like 7:30. It'd be a complete shock at the I probably wouldn't even be able to get to sleep. So also there are times where I am working at the contact center and there are times when I'm working remote here from the apartment and it's not even close. My performance is definitely better when I'm at the office as compared to here. And the primary reason is because there's just a lot of distractions here in my apartment because I have a studio apartment. Pretty much everything is in one place, and I'm not going to work in the kitchen area. That would be a huge hassle to set up. So, there are perks to working remote. You're sort of in your comfortable space. But at the same time, I do like the compartmentalization where I go to the contact center. That's my work time. And then when I leave the contact center, it's me time, taking care of KDub time. Also, let's look at some of the most common chats. So over the past month, there have been a lot of financial chats, people struggling financially. There have been a lot of relationship chats, and there have been a lot of chats from teens, which makes sense. Teens now are very much more comfortable texting and chatting than they are calling and actually meeting in person, and that makes sense. As an introvert, I understand. Actually, meeting someone in person is very draining. Even talking to someone on the phone can be very draining for me, where I need to take a nap right after, for example. So that makes sense. When it comes to those that are seriously contemplating suicide and that it is the only option out, I found that very few and far between. Many, many, many chatters are ambivalent about the thought of ending their life, and so we sort of explore what's going on, and then that ambivalence, and then, hey, are you willing to try these things today? And if they don't work, come back to chat, and then we sort of let them be on their way. Now, at the beginning of my time taking chats on my own, I did get a lot of LGBTQ plus chatters, and to be honest with you, I'm not very well suited for that. I'm not as well versed in those areas as I would like. So I sort of just the only thing I could really do there was assess for suicide, listen to the story, and then hey, are you willing to check out these resources and try these things? And for the most part, that has gone well. Very few times have we had to call 911, and that's called an involuntary emergency services send. It's very few and far between. In the month that I've been employed, I've had, I believe, 5 instances where we've had to do that, and those are actually very rare. It basically only happens when that person says, "I'm going to basically do it right now," or within 24 hours. And we try to get as much information as possible so that we can send those services. But since it's involuntary, usually we don't have all the information we need. And so we have ways to sort of work around that I cannot get into. What is the most difficult part of the job? Well, it's definitely day by day getting sort of the same kind of chats over and over again. That is definitely, in my opinion, the most difficult part of the job for me, for sure. You can only, for me, this is my experience. You can only take so much of the same story, and then you're sort of just you sort of just nod your head basically, but you can't really put nod your head in the chat. That's not actually very kind. Um, and you're sort of just like, yeah, I've heard that before, and you're saying that in your head while the person is chatting with you. So I consider it the most difficult, and it just sort of your for me the empathy sort of it starts out here, and then by the third time someone comes in the chat for relationship issues, it starts going down, down, down very quickly. I wouldn't say exponentially, but definitely uh, quite a bit. So likes and dislikes, I sort of like the hours. Being able to sleep in the morning, technically, compared to if my job started at 7. That's something that I appreciate, for sure. I do appreciate having chat as a format because you do not need to be right on top of everything when it comes to a chat. You get a little bit of time. You put in what you type and maybe a question, and then the chatter has to respond to that, and that can take 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, depending on what the person's state is. If they're really in distress, it's going to take about 3 minutes or so, sometimes a little bit longer. So it gives you time to sort of think out, well, what direction has this chat gone, and which direction do we want to sort of see this chat go? Um, in the near future, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to sort of project because then someone drops a bomb on you, and you're like, oh, well, that is definitely interesting and changes the game. So we got to change direction with this chat. The waiting is probably one of the most disliked parts. At times, it will be a half hour to an hour before I get a chat at my particular station, and that's difficult to manage over the long run. Uh, yeah, you can. They have reading materials that we can read, and we can bring our own sort of reading materials or something to draw with or whatever. But that's a little bit annoying as well because maybe I'll get into something and then a chat comes along and then I gotta turn work mode back on. So that is one of the dislikes. Overload on the issues. I've sort of touched on that. You can only take so many financial difficulties chats in a row before it's like, okay, I've heard all of this before, and once again you're saying that in your head. You're not putting that into the chat. And generally speaking, that overload on issues and the complete destruction of empathy that I usually have is probably my biggest dislike. We have a lot of support at our organization, but I am usually very hesitant to reach out for support unless it's absolutely devastating. Like I'm completely out of options, and I'm not out of options at this point in time. And I have been trying things as we've gone along where it's been a little bit better. And then, sort of, the overall assessment, it reminds me of being in education a little bit, where you're putting a lot of work in and you're not really able to see especially with this particular position, you're not able to sort of monitor any progress being made because you may never have another chat with that particular person and be able to check up on them. Uh, If we were taking crisis calls, that would be a different story. We could offer follow-ups. But with chat at the moment, we do not have any particular follow-up. And another overall assessment is yes, although people do tend to find chatting with us helpful, from my perspective, it's very lacking. Sure, we can talk about what is going on with them, but the suggestions we make, although there is a variety of suggestions we can make when we are conducting a safety plan with the individual, it's the philosophy is more of are you going to be able to be safe right now, and it doesn't really provide any long-term sort of solutions that. And you can sort of push the more long-term solutions of, or have you thought about reaching out to a counselor that you can see on a regular basis? But then the person has to choose to do that. And there is one story that I did want to share, and it was a chatter who was having issues with their significant other, and they the chatter basically said, "I don't trust myself to be alone. I just want to take all these pills and just get it over. Basically, get it over with. I want to stop feeling this pain." And then we're trying to work through it. You know what the plan is, and what is really causing that sort of distress. And then that particular chatter asked me, as the counselor, should I go to my friend's place? Yeah, that's actually a great idea. So at the end of that chat, the person's like, you really possibly could have saved my life today. And I don't agree with that person's assessment. I believe that that person indeed saved themselves in that particular situation. And that option, I sort of just said, yeah, that's a great option. That I didn't really force them to choose that option. They chose that option themselves. And I feel like for the most part, when it comes to chatters, for those that do reach out and do take the suggestions seriously, they are basically helping themselves, and I'm sort of just facilitating that. I'm not really doing anything special. I'm not really making awesome suggestions that are life changing to them. Um, so that's sort of the way I look at it philosophically. And when some other counselors are chatting, they're like, "I want to save you." That sort of bothers me because philosophically, I don't really agree with that statement. All right, so that's it for this little recording. If there are any questions that I can answer, please put them in the comments or get in touch with me on social media. So until next time, everyone, take care of yourselves and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye for now.